$87.87 to fill up my car. Oh my God, and I was already a quarter full. Jeez.
Going from $750 up to $1,300 this month. That's basically one whole paycheck of mine. What about putting something in for landlords that they can't jack up the rent that much?
Doesn't matter where you are in Canada, everyone's asking the same question. Why is rent doubled, mortgages have doubled, and down payments have doubled? And it's happened from coast to coast to coast to coast, everywhere in the country. And the answer is we actually don't have enough apartment buildings. And so there's not enough competition. If there were more apartments, you go to your landlord and say, if you jack up the rent, I'm out. I'm going to go to move down the street or move to the next town over. But the problem is in Canada, last year our population grew by 1 million people. And we built about 200,000 homes. We need one home for every roughly 2 people. So in other words, we would need to house 1 million people, we need at least 500,000 new homes every year. We're building not even half of that. So every year, the shortage of housing grows by about 300,000 units. And that empowers the land speculator and the landlord because they have control over a scarce commodity called housing.
It's payday today, so let's budget my paycheck. I make $75,000 a year, and after taxes and deductions, my bi-weekly paycheck comes out to be $2,155. This week was a real treat because I got not 1, not 2, but 3 photo radar tickets in the mail. I paid off my credit card in full at $1,100, and then I put aside $583 for my rent, $243 for my car payment, leaving me with $229 left over. I paid for 1 photo radar ticket, and then I gave up on life because I was left with $80 for the next 2 weeks.
She can't afford to buy a home in the township she leads.
Earning around $90,000 a year, she can't afford a home in the municipality she leads.
Living in this region is really not attainable for a young professional who has university debt, and I know I'm certainly not alone in that.
She says many of her own friends in their late 20s are unable to afford homes in Wilmot too.
This is how I would budget for a couple making $4,000 a month. Using the 75-10-15 method, 75% goes towards your needs. So use $3,000 towards housing, bills, transport, and groceries. 10% goes towards wants, so $400 to spend on dining out, entertainment, and hobbies. The last 15% is saved. With $600, I would start an emergency fund. Invest or pay off extra debts.
Workers are not earning enough wages to afford the most basic thing, a place to live. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the average individual now has to work more than 100 hours a week just to earn enough income to afford a 2-bedroom apartment rental. 100 hours a week. The group looked at average rents across the country and determined that in order to have enough money to afford a 2-bedroom apartment and other necessities, the average worker needs to earn over $28 an hour. And that's on average. In some states, it's way more. In New York, you need to earn more than $40 an hour. In Florida, it's over $30 an hour. In California, it's more than $42 an hour. The current federal minimum wage is just $7.25 an hour.
Ridiculous.
There's not a single state in the country that offers a minimum wage that would allow workers to afford a 2-bedroom apartment working just 40 hours a week. And 50% of workers in the country don't earn enough during a 40-hour week to even afford rent for a 1-bedroom apartment, which requires on average a wage of more than $23 an hour. Bootlickers for capital like to claim that younger generations can't afford homes because they're spending too much money on avocado toast and shit. But no, it's because the ownership class's declining rate of profit over the last few decades has forced it to more aggressively exploit workers to a point now that wages aren't even enough to put a roof over their employees' heads. This is an untenable situation. And to learn more about what happens next, read Marx.
This is how I became debt-free and saved my first $10,000. You can do it too, but I want to preface this by saying this is what worked for me. I didn't have TikTok at the time to teach me. I had to learn the hard way, and if I can even help one person learn how to better their life through their finances, it'll be a win to me. As always, do what works for you and your situation. This is just what I did. So first of all, I know you don't want to hear this, but you have to work on your mindset. You're not going to get anywhere with the victim mentality of I can never be debt free, I can never make more money, etc. Work on a mindset of gratitude. Be grateful for what you already have and say thank you when you pay your bills, even though that's kind of hard to do. The second thing I did was to make a plan for how I was going to do this. And it took me a while to come up with this. But it ended up working for me. So I had my main account, and this is the account that I already had. I decided this was going to be my spending account for any fun money that I had for myself, and it's just a regular checking account. I decided to set up a bill account. It was going to also be a checking account. It can be with the same bank. And this is where I was going to transfer all the money to the bills. So one of my goals was to auto pay all my bills from this account eventually. Then I was going to set an emergency fund up for myself using a high yield savings account. Doesn't matter what bank or credit union you use. And then I was going to set up sinking funds. I decided to do cash envelopes so I could hold myself more accountable and see the cash in my hand and understand how it was moving. That's how I started off. Now I do it digital, but I started off with cash envelopes and it really worked for me. Then I had to create a budget for myself. And something very important to note is that you need to be realistic with your budget. If you know you're probably going to eat fast food or go out to eat, budget for that, or else you're going to blow your budget. It is very important to just build the things in that you know you're going to spend and hold yourself accountable for the amounts that you set. If you don't set money for things you want, you're way more likely to blow your budget, and then you're going to be frustrated with yourself. The next step is to put together a plan for my emergency fund. I wanted to save $1,000, so I did a $1,000 challenge. I'll put a picture here of the exact challenge I created and used for myself. I hung it on the wall, and every time I contributed something to my emergency fund, I colored in a square, and it really kept me motivated and allowed me to celebrate my wins. Next step is I created a debt plan. How was I going to pay off my debt? I used the snowball method, where you pay things off from the smallest balance to the largest, and then you apply the minimum payments to the next debt once you pay one off. It makes it really easy to pay off your debt over time. Then I started doing side hustles to bring in more money to apply to my emergency fund first, and then my debt. Once that was paid off, I saved up my first $10K. I hope this helps. You can do this too. Stay grateful and stay focused.
Up because I'm going to tell you something about the next 20 years that you should know. The prices of everything are insane right now. And there are a lot of people that think that housing is a bubble that's going to burst and that houses are overpriced. And I've been hearing a lot of comments on my videos about how, just the prices of houses right now are insane. But let me tell you something. That isn't going to come down anytime soon. This isn't a bubble. And let me tell you why. Right now, we all know there's inflation. And I've been paying attention to a lot of metrics and a lot of data. And one of the things that's very interesting is how the average age of building contractors used to be much younger. It used to be 28 to 34, I think, was the range of the average building contractor. And more young people have been getting out of the business. And right now, the average age of the average building contractor is, I believe it is now 38 to 46 or something like that, right? So the contractors that are building homes are getting older and older, and the younger people are not coming into the business. That means that there are fewer people building homes. On top of it, the cost of materials has skyrocketed in the last 3 years, which means it's no longer profitable to build homes, so there are fewer homes being built. All of the cheaper options for building homes or dropping homes on land like mobile homes, manufactured homes, or even log cabins, all of those have gone skyrocket. So nobody can afford to put those in anymore. It used to be for $50,000-$60,000 you'd be done. You could put a mobile home in. Can't do it anymore. Now it's $120,000. It's doubled. All right. Now think about this, just the sheer math of this. Every baby that's being born would need a house to live in someday. And right now we are not building one house for every baby. And so however you want to figure the math, our population is outpacing our construction of new homes. Now, on top of it, there's a couple other things that are, driving this supply and demand imbalance. You've got Airbnb. Airbnb all by itself takes a large chunk, a large percentage of homes right out of the equation. These are homes that are sitting vacant and can no longer really be rented as typical rentals, and they're not being sold because now they're investment properties. You look around at the corporate buy-up of all the homes. There are corporations and smart investors and speculators that know exactly what I'm telling you right now is true. And right now the corporations are buying up all the homes, which is why the bidding wars are happening. Why? Because they're going to turn them into rentals. Because if you haven't noticed, there's also a rental crisis. So we have a human housing crisis in this country right now that is only going to get worse over the next 10 to 15 years. There's going to be a huge imbalance, which means prices are going to skyrocket for homes. No matter what you think the prices are right now, no matter how insane you think the housing prices are right now, it is going to double or triple in the next 10 to 15 years. And that's really crazy when you think about it, because everything else has been exploding. So how are we going to afford any of this stuff? I don't know the answer to these questions, but here's what I do know. I know that I'm very thankful that I bought my farm in New York in 2018, and it has already tripled in value, and I think it's going to triple again over the next 3 or 4 years. So if you're thinking about buying a home and you have the ability to buy a home, this is a great time to buy a home, because these prices aren't coming down. These values aren't coming down, and there isn't a housing crisis, on its, or like a housing crash isn't coming anytime soon. I've been doing inspections for a lot of investors who are buying up homes to turn them into rentals. So the two things, kind of the double whammy that's going to happen, is that rentals are going to go through the roof. It's going to become more and more expensive to rent homes because it's going to become more in demand. This is how supply and demand works. When you have more demand than you have supply, prices go way up. So all I'm saying is the American dream is definitely getting further and further away from all of us. But if you have the ability to latch on to any of it right now, it really is a good time. And this is going to be interesting to see what's going to happen over the next decade. And please, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just passing on the information and the data that I've been reading and kind of my spidey sense of how this is all going to go. I'm not happy about any of this.